All right, so I just got back from an offshore trip a couple days ago. I caught these Bonita. Down here in Florida, we call these Bonita. Up north, they're called False Albacore. It's the same fish. They're great fighters. I love catching them. One, for the sport that they provide with their fight, and two, they make great bait for all kinds of fish offshore. So I'm going to show you all what I do in terms of how I prepare these fish for snapper bait. I'm going to use this jumbo size one here for snapper and grouper bait. I'm going to cut it up into larger chunks, and then on this smaller guy here, I'm going to cut it up in thinner, shallower chunks, which I'm going to use for triggerfish and mingo snapper. So I just want to show y'all how I do it. I don't profess to be a pro at any of this stuff, but this is what works for me, and I hope that someone out there can learn something from this and add a new trick to their arsenal of ways that you catch fish offshore, because as offshore fishermen, we are always trying to learn new ways, methods, and tactics to increase the chances of us bringing home a fish box full of fish. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, one thing I like to do, because these fish are so bloody, is I like to put them in the fridge. Makes it a lot easier to work with. If you try to do this when they are fresh, you are going to have a huge mess on your hands. Now, I'm fortunate to have this nice big cutting board from Bird of Prey Tackle. And like when you're, cleaning any fish, you just go down to the backbone, let the blade do the work. Now, with this fish being cold, it is a little tougher, but that's okay. Just want to cut it all the way off. Look at how dark all that meat is. Go ahead and turn them over. Now, another thing I like to do when I do this, I'll have a 5-gallon bucket. And that's definitely not what I wanted to do. And I'll throw all the guts and anything else in that bucket. I'll tell you what, when they're cold like this, they can also give your forearm a real nice workout. This is primo snapper bait. Now, I know some of you watching will probably think, well, you're wasting a bunch of that fish. I have not built up the courage or the desire to try to eat this fish. I've heard of people that try it. And I do not doubt that there are ways you can prepare this fish where it does taste okay, but I'll let other people try that out. Now, the stomach right here, this is excellent for snapper, like mingo snapper and triggerfish, because it's so thin. So I'm going to keep this aside. Now, for big red snapper and grouper, I like these bigger Bonita, and I will just cut it vertically like this. See the skin right here? The skin is very, very tough. For these snapper, you could drop almost any kind of meat down there. But the reason why these Bonita are such a great and ideal bait is because the skin is so tough that if a fish takes a couple passes at this bait, chances are you're still going to have some bait left over when they come back. If you fish with stuff like squid, it's so delicate that if one fish takes a swipe at it, usually it's gone. Now I know these chunks look big, but if you want big fish, this is what you want. Now that's not to say that triggerfish and smaller bait fish aren't going to pick at it, because that's just part of the game. But if you've got a bag full of bonita like this and live bait isn't doing the trick, you know, dead cigar minnows isn't doing the trick, slow pitch jigging isn't doing the trick, your flatline isn't catching anything, this is another method that can work great. I'm going to keep these thin pieces off to the side as well. Those are going to be great for the smaller baits I want to make. Going to do the same thing here with the stomach. Put that aside. Now there are some people that like to make strips out of this and they'll troll with it. I don't really troll a whole lot on my boat, so that's why I'm preparing to fish this way. Keep this aside too. And then we just, for the most part, cut them down the middle. These are nice big fat chunks of primo bait for snapper, grouper. You know, hell, I'd even caught big amberjack on this stuff. I mean, this type of bait can really catch anything on the bottom. A big piece of bait like this, that can catch you a jumbo snapper, a jumbo grouper. I know they say that elephants eat peanuts, but I'm a lot more confident when I've got a big chunk of bonita hanging out on the bottom. All right, so that covers the first fish. And I just like to put them in a gallon bag. And they go in the freezer and they're ready for the next trip. Now one tip you might want to do, and I'm going to do it, is to double bag this stuff. Because I have learned the hard way, especially when you've got some cheap bags like this. We usually use the Ziploc brand, but for whatever reason we've got this cheap Up and Up brand. I think it's a Target brand or something. After a trip or so, especially when you've got a bag like this in the fish box and you've caught some fish and they've got their, you know, sharp pointy fins, before too long something is going to puncture this bag. And unless you like a fish box full of bonita blood, or you like a messy boat, I would highly recommend at least double bagging this stuff. Now for this smaller bonita, I'm going to cut it up the same way, but this time I'm going to cut it a little shallower. And the reason I'm going to cut it shallower is because for these mingo snapper and triggerfish especially, they got small mouths. And when you're trying to put, you know, a big piece of bait on a small hook, it doesn't really work, and oftentimes your fingers end up squishing the meat. So what I've started doing is I've started preparing a bag of cut bonita exclusively for a chicken rig when I'm fishing for mingo snapper and triggerfish. Huh, look at this. Got the remains of a, what is this, a cigar minnow? In his belly right there. All right. into the 5-gallon bucket you go. All right. So I'm actually going to trim some of this meat off. So then I have a bag prepared of thin strips of bonita that I can then cut once I'm out there. Now, if you tried to cut all these into tiny pieces, while it seems like it would be a good idea, once they start thawing out, especially in this hot summer sun, if you try to pull the little pieces off one another, they're just going to get mushy, and then it's going to be very hard to put them on your hook. Gosh. I'll make one more pass. All right, so you see here, this is a much thinner piece. And I'm just going to cut it in strips. And we'll put it in a bag, and then once I'm ready to use them offshore, I'll pull these strips out and then cut them into pieces. So again, just to summarize why I do it this way, these are thinner pieces that are going to go on usually size 1, size 2 inline circle hooks or Mutu circle hooks. Because of the small mouths of these mingo snapper and triggerfish, you got to use a small hook. So you see how thin this is. Once I'm out there, I'll just bring out my scissors and I'll just cut about 5 or 6 pieces off each strip and it'll be ready to go. If I tried to do this off of the big pieces that I cut earlier, it would be very mushy, and it just really doesn't work. And I only know that from experience because I tried using the big pieces for everything, and it didn't work out well. So I'm going to do the same thing on this piece, and then we're going to call it a day. That was a much nicer cut than the last piece. And that's that. So with this one fish, this one small bonita, I've been able to make all this strip bait that I'm going to use for bottom fishing with a chicken rig, for mingo snapper and triggerfish. And again, I did it this way because if you try to use the bigger pieces, it's a lot more difficult to fit on a small hook. So with these thinner pieces, all I have to do is get some scissors, snip, snip, and it's ready to go. So I hope that this video has helped someone learn something. As offshore fishermen, again, we're always trying to up our game and find new ways to fill our fish box. And this is a way that I have found makes getting your bait ready for the bottom bite using chicken rigs much easier than having to do all this on the boat. So if you watch this and you use bonita a little differently or you prepare it differently, I'd love to hear how you do it. And hopefully you and I can both sharpen one another and continue improving our game offshore. So thanks everyone for watching.
Okay, let's go.